Hi, BookTube. Welcome back to the History Shelf with Martine, the whole pack of animals.
We don't know what's happening.
Yes.
I didn't know the dogs were this into Agatha Christie.
Daisy and Roxy wanted to be part of the Moving Finger wrap-up, and that's what we're here to do, right, hon?
Yeah, maybe they think that they can chew the moving finger after it stopped moving. I have no idea.
Yeah, Roxy's ready to dish, as you can see. Right, Rox? No, okay.
I don't understand.
They are like little babies.
This is not why we're here.
No. Okay. So anyway, you guys, we are here to wrap up The Moving Finger. This was my version, the latest William Morrow edition. Show them yours, babe. Let me put it closer to the camera there a little bit backwards. Great. Okay.
No, it's fine. Everybody can see this.
Get out of here. All right.
And here's a Roxy before she gets down.
Ah!
Extreme close-up. Okay.
We put the chair behind us so she can maybe get in the view.
But no.
But, you know, can you take Daisy?
Can
Put her on the floor.
Baby boots.
So here you go, guys. We're gonna talk today about the moving finger. As you know, in our last video, we wrapped up The Body in the Library. It was delayed a bit due to some health issues in December. Doo-doo. But I had a preview of the next book, and we had to talk about whether we were going to, ditch the moving finger, kind of based off of just what, frankly, Martine said,
I was kind of judgy.
She was kind of judgy, and she just said she didn't really like it. And then you were very shocked when I finished reading it, like January 25th or something, and I came downstairs and I said, well, I'm finished. And she's like, what's the verdict? And I said, I loved it.
And I said, get out. Yeah. I'm surprised by that.
But then I retracted, and I said, no, not loved. I said I liked it. However, now we're going to get into some huge caveats.
Yeah, but I do have to say, because we apparently both second-guess ourselves, so yay to be assertive and forward-thinking. When you said you loved it, I was like, oh, maybe I missed something.
It read very easily for me. I didn't get confused like I did maybe in The Body in the Library. There's a lot of
the logistics of the backyard and who could see what and when. And,
yes.
Okay.
So I found that I could follow along with the narrative of, this is set in Limstock, is the name of the town. Mm-hmm. The brother and the sister, Jerry Burton, who is injured, goes to the countryside and moves into a little home with his sister, Joanne, or Joanna, into a little cottage called Little Furs.
Cottage
which is so interesting.
Very much not like a cottage and more like a minor manor in
really.
the adaptation, but that's skipping ahead.
I wouldn't mind having that,
Cottage.
Right?
Yeah. There wasn't a thatched roof in that cottage.
There wasn't a thatched roof, but it had everything else. They even had the in-help...
In-house help?
Yeah, in-house help, Partridge.
Partridge was great.
So... Now, we're going to get into the reasons why Martine didn't like it. My initial instinct was... reaction was to say, I thought the notion of a poison pen, because that's the premise of The Moving Finger, is that they move into this village, and then anonymous letters are received by various and sundry people, and then finally Jerry gets one saying, that's not your sister, she's a dirty whore, or something like that, written in famous anonymous letter style with the cutout letters glued onto the paper.
Very time-consuming, yeah. This is before you could slut-shame people electronically and anonymously. This took way more glue.
Trolling on Twitter.
And scissor control.
Yeah,
well done.
Yeah. So, well done. So I kind of like that... what do you call that? Again, I said last time we tried doing this, I said trope, but it's not a trope.
Conceit.
A conceit, it's a plot... Device, thank you, that's what the plot device. So I rather like the poison pen. But then Martine kind of educated me, saying, and I didn't know this, even though I've read a lot of Agatha Christie, but I read a lot of her when I was younger, so I'm kind of getting back into reading her books with this Marple series. Martine says the poison pen device is actually quite common.
Yeah, maybe I want to... So I should, by way of just overall background. We recorded this once yesterday. And so if it appears that we're repeating the conversation or we're sort of saying things like, and again, blah, 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 and you've never heard it before, this is why. Anyway, no, I feel like Christie does use gossip as a general device, a catalyst, an event that kicks off other things, and so
A catalyst, right?
right, and so whether
Did
it's
you say that?
So a catalyst. So
Word of the day.
yeah, no converter. So whether it's by pen or I don't think she does anything by phone, but I feel like she does use that, and between the poison pen. And I'm not just saying Marple, but other books and stories, and Poison. Those are her two go-tos.
Anonymity and poison.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Okay, well in this case it's just a poison pen. There's nothing really poison about it, right?
Poisonous in terms of content.
It's poisonous, but there's no death via that. Oh, I take that back. Well,
at the
right,
beginning.
because the murder. Okay, so we'll move on to some of the other characters. Mr. and Mrs. Symington.
Great name.
Great name. And the first death is Mrs. Symington. And it would appear that she was very distraught over having received an anonymous letter saying that her daughter, who is Megan, in the book, it's Megan, I forget what her last name is, but she's the stepdaughter now of Mr. Symington. The anonymous letter was claiming that, she's not the daughter of the man you claim.
Her father had a criminal background, and she was kind of going the same way.
Yeah.
Right, that was the intimation.
But either way, it's like it appears to be a suicide by, they find a scrap of a suicide note that says, I can't go on, and it's torn. And... Okay, so there's all that going on, right? But okay.
But then the brother and sister are pulled into it because they and again I was just about to turn to Peggy and say, did you already say this? Because we're stuck in this memento moment where we're talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
And the reason we re-recorded, by the way, was at my pleading, because after a certain age you should not record women from this angle. Ladies, are you with me? I mean, this was just
look at my neck's not looking that great.
Do this the whole way. Anyway,
hello, how's everybody? There you go. I got a strong enough chin.
I can't do anything.
Listen,
I'm just not Sigourney Weaver in so many ways. So, despite all my wishing. Anyway, so the brother and sister are pulled into this. They're newcomers to the village. He's rehabbing from something. We know it wasn't during the war, that he went through the war with barely a scratch, I believe is what they say.
But he was, okay.
But he appears to have, and it's an interesting conversation. He was a pilot, but there are intimations on at least one of the television adaptations that he might have PTSD.
Okay.
And so, anyway, so then they get a letter, and then he starts asking the doctor, like, hey, this thing happened, I don't really feel welcome in the neighborhood.
Dr. Griffiths.
And then it becomes established, it becomes known that there's this person doing these things, and they have no idea who it is.
Yeah, a lot of people are making guesses as to who it could be. Someone's like, it's Mrs. Cleet.
They're pretty sure they know.
Yeah, everyone's pretty sure that they know, and they all assume, didn't mention this last time, they all assume it's a woman.
Yes.
And right there I was like, I bet you it's not.
Right.
So I kept
again,
that.
Christie goes back to
I kept that in the back of my mind.
Men talking about women, women talking about women,
yes.
women talking about men, men talking about men.
Yes.
And then subverting it, which is
subverting
always kind of fun.
it, which was kind of fun. And I really was, I mentioned this, sorry guys, you weren't there for it, but I really enjoyed again, Christie has just witty little dialogue that just, it sounds so real, it rings true throughout. I was chuckling throughout. Now, so having said that I enjoyed this mystery, I can't say that I enjoyed it as a Miss Marple. Because to me, the moving finger was a mystery that was Miss Marple adjacent, is what I called it.
Yeah.
As many of you know who followed along and read The Moving Finger with us in January, this book has 15 chapters, and she did not even make an appearance until chapter 10. So that is 160 pages in, and that, like, this is all that's left.
That's
and she's
called cheating.
It's cheating, and she's barely even in this.
That's called doing a science paper and talking about your favorite soap opera until you mentioned that,
Yeah.
soap opera star, until you mentioned that she had back surgery last year, and then you tie it all in.
Yeah.
And that's supposed to be your assignment.
Well,
Yeah.
I just thought that was an incredibly glaring weakness of the book. It was just so obvious. Like, we were talking about it afterwards. I'm like, I wonder, did the publisher at the time just say, Agatha, we need another Miss Marple mystery. Those are, if we just slap her name on the cover, people buy the book. So I almost am wondering if she was writing a standalone book, a standalone mystery, it could have been The Poison Pen or something like that. And she's like, okay, let me see if I can work her in. Because really, it was so obvious. And
She
even,
was incidental to every part of this book, basically.
And for that aspect, I didn't like that.
Yeah, because what's the guy's name again?
Jerry Burton.
Jerry, he was doing all the legwork and everything, and so...
Indeed, there's a part in the book where she thanks him. Like, if you hadn't collected all these clues, and he's like, yeah, you're welcome,
Yeah.
So I just don't think this was a strong showing for Miss Marple.
No.
The extent of her deduction was her appearance, and then Jerry seeing her talking to two people. Like, he saw her talking to Megan, and he had a conversation with Miss Marple after that. He saw Miss Marple coming out of the police station. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's all we know until the end, when they stage the trap to catch the killer.
Mm-hmm. And there was also the conversation, who hasn't gotten a letter.
And who
right?
hasn't gotten a letter, which was just as, so I'm going to try to get to that as we move through it. So there was Miss Symington, and then we go back to the fact that Agatha Christie is known for killing at least 2 people in her novels. So there was another death, and was that Agnes?
It was the maid who was supposed to be
Beatrice.
visiting.
No, it was Agnes.
She was supposed to be visiting the Firs, and she never showed up. And
Okay.
their maid was all put out of shape because she thought that she had ghosted her. Basically, she dumped her and hadn't even apologized. And instead, she was dead in the closet upstairs in the house that she worked. So.
Yes, so there's that. So we got a 2-body count, right? Which kind of complicated matters, because you've got Dr. Griffiths, which is great. I enjoyed the banter with the brother and sister, especially how they kind of seemed to know who of the opposite sex was interested in them. He's like, oh, Dr. Griffiths has it bad for you, Joanna,
Yeah.
And but let's get to the part of the book that just made Martine hate it so much, and let's talk about Megan. Or not.
I hate that name. I now hate that name. Like, I listened to the audiobook, and so Richard E. Grant did the narration, and he was great. He definitely recommend the audiobook, but every time he said, what about Megan? What about Megan? All I could think of was The Windsors on Netflix, like, Megan. I can't even say Pippa. Megan.
Pippa.
Megan.
Megan.
And so I love that show. But what about Megan? Yeah, we could have called the book that, basically. She was so annoying. And at first you were like, well, maybe it's the adaptation. And then I said, no, it's the actual words on the page. Like, oh, I'm horrible, I'm stupid, nobody loves me.
Yeah, she was so...
I just wanted to put her out of her own misery.
Yeah, that would have been okay.
And I would have been fine with that, honestly. And that's what like, shaded or stained my approach towards the book even before I read it, well before.
Well, I agree. When I was reading it, she didn't... I just breezed past her dialogue because she was annoying to me. It's like, oh, you're one of those self-deprecating, no one likes me and here's why, and you're just, a Debbie Downer. So I just kind of ignored it. But it really, really got under your skin, and I get it. And then when we'll move into the TV adaptation, then I really understood, especially with the Joan Hickson adaptation.
Yeah.
Megan was horrible.
Megan.
I just wanted to point out a couple things, just because we won't have a lot to say here about Marple, just because she wasn't really in it. But let me just point out some of the things that I find are carrying over through the other 2 books, or 2. Wait, how many have we read so far?
This is the
Murder
third.
at the Vicarage, Body and Library. So this is the 3rd. What is happening to my computer? Okay, so what we're going to do... Oh, it's doing some updates.
Yay.
So what I want to say is something that carries on through from the other two books where I've said in the past that Miss Marple has a sense of people. Mm-hmm. She seems to really just have that emotional intelligence. And that helps her get in the minds of other people and just kind of can call out, well, that wouldn't be a natural reaction, but this would be. Mm-hmm. And she also, has a good notion for, she's seen a lot of evil crap, she knows that. And there's this part in the moving finger that I really, I made a note on. This is when the mystery is getting so ridiculous and no one knows how to solve it and who's writing these letters, and Mrs. Dane Calthrop,
another great name.
Mm-hmm. Again, Agatha Christie had great names for villages and everything else and people, kind of like Dickens did. So there's a part where she's talking to Jerry Burton. It's like, something has to be done. This has to be stopped. And he's like, well, what are you prepared to do? Sorry, there I go again with the Sean Connery from The Untouchables. What are you prepared to do?
That would have been awesome.
Yeah, it would have been. You bring the knife to the gunfight. Or the
Sean Connery was in Death on the Nile.
Oh, well, there you have it. 6 degrees of Sean Connery.
Sean Connery.
And so she's like, well, he's like, well, we can't call in Scotland Yard, and she's like, no. She goes, and I'm going to read this part right here. She says, I don't mean that kind of an expert. I don't mean someone who knows about anonymous letters or even about murder. I mean someone who knows people. Don't you see? We want someone who knows a great deal about wickedness. And then I was like, oh, Marple's coming, finally.
It's so lazy, though.
164 pages in.
It's lazy.
It is lazy.
Yeah.
So,
I yesterday, during the initial recording, I was talking about Nemesis and how that's a Marple story that she is in from the very beginning, and not just as a neighbor of a friend of a cousin's neighbor's sister-in-law. Like, she is there as a central core figure, protagonist from the very beginning, and it's so much better. And so I wish that they would stop slotting her in, because I feel like they do not do that did not do that with Poirot.
Christie didn't.
Christie didn't, and I don't know if she was... Obviously, she did everything intentionally. I just wonder what her approach was with Marple that said, no, I can kind of integrate this character instead of her setting the stage. Mm-hmm. Because I feel like it's okay with her coming in and observing and putting things together, and then gradually it all accumulates in that final, that final scene in the dining room. Poirot is the same way, but with this, there was really no sense of her entanglement or involvement beyond the odd word here or there. It was useless.
So it was useless. So I thought it was an interesting mystery, and it held my attention. But on the level of a Miss Marple novel, I have to give this like a C-, because she's barely in the damn thing.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a mixed bag. I mean, I definitely didn't hate it, but I'm like, but Miss Marple wasn't really in it. So one more thing I want to say about the book, that we're going to hop into a quick synopsis of the adaptations, and then at the end, stay to the end, guys, if you're still around, because today's the first day of February, which means we have a new Miss Marple. Very excited to start a new one, and we hope it's better.
One.
And not this Miss Marple, this Miss O'Keefe. She gives a thumbs up to the next book. So I think, I've already teased it in other videos. But anyway, the thing that I thought was rushed and stupid was this relationship between Jerry Burton and Megan.
Oh, let's talk about that.
First of all, when I first meet Megan, I'm like, she was on this spectrum of age that I could not nail down. I'm like, she could be 8, she could be 18. I have no idea by the way she's talking and pedaling her little bike around. I'm like, is this girl even legal? And then all of a sudden...
What kind of bike? Does it have,
Yeah, and then he
training wheels or...
Yeah. And he finds her just she's just hey kid. Oh, the other thing I hated about this, sorry, I didn't hate it. The other thing I was like, and I meant to talk to you about this. He would call her names, and he's like, come here, slab face. And I'm like, slab face?
Well, that's
what
really...
the...
Yeah, that didn't even...
What the hell does slab face mean?
It's endearing.
Slab
it's
face?
like a boy.
Is slab face endearing to you? Anyone out there want to say? Slab
Context
face.
is important. No, I think it's akin to like the boy pulling the girl's pigtails.
Oh.
It's just like, come here, you, and then he's like, oh my God, Claire, you're beautiful. You
Yeah,
know,
because she gets the pretty woman makeover day where they go shopping for
she gets the
frilly,
glow up.
She gets the glow up with
right.
frilly little frocks.
She's
and
still
such.
12.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden he goes, oh, well, hey, why not? Why, hey, yeah, marriage sounds like a great idea. This just sounds
He's
too
all
off
over the map. And then the woman that he fancies the hell out of until she
Elsie
opens
Holland,
her mouth.
yes. Well, let's get back to the
Whatever.
mystery real quick. Yeah, so we found out that the real culprit was the most obvious person. If you looked at the evidence and the motive factor, who would have a motive? Well, it was Mr. Symington because he wanted the hot nanny governess, Elsie Holland.
Didn't mind her Yorkshire accent or wherever she
Yeah,
was
apparently Jerry Burton thought she was the most beautiful, and then she opened up her mouth, and then he's like, "No, I'd rather go with this ratty
This
little
12-year-old.
teenager
Yeah.
over here." I'm like, "What?" So that didn't fly. I did chuckle at the end though, when he's with her, Joanna's with Dr. Griffith, and as a wedding present or something, they get a dog or a puppy, and Joanna sends him in the mail a leash and a collar, and then a second one. And Megan says to Jerry, she goes, "I wonder what that one's for, the second one." And he's like, "Oh, that's just Joanna's little joke." And I was like, that's pretty good. Marriage, you're on a leash now. I don't know. I really, kind of enjoy that humor. Anyway.
Well, yeah, I was just going to say there was the pairing, the brother-sister pairing in both instances with the the doctor and his sister, and then Jerry and his sister. But the plot didn't go. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Please tell me, but the plot didn't go anywhere as far as going, oh, do you see how they framed this as a juxtaposition of this? I didn't see it. I did not see it.
Yeah, because Amy Griffiths, a sister of the doctor, was
in love with Symington.
And at one point they actually observed her typing one of the letters, and
but
so they thought she was
instead of
it was typed rather than glued on with the word. So they thought, oh, she's the killer, but really she was jealous.
Yeah.
So anyway. Yeah.
And she had also orchestrated for Megan to be back at the house, right?
Yeah.
So that he wasn't there by himself. Anyway, yeah, definitely a lesser story. Sorry. I get it. I don't understand why Christie... I'm still looking for that book that talks about, not a biography, but talks about what she was working on at the same time and what the reaction was that would indicate that she felt so early into the creation of this main character. Now, maybe she didn't intend Marple to be a main character, but so early in the evolution of this character that she would feel that she could have a bye week. That her third time out, she could just be like, I'll write this half-written Tommy and Tuppence, and I'll make the changes, and I'll do whatever, and then I'll just pass it off as a Marple and see if anybody notices.
Right.
She doesn't seem like that kind of author, so I'm confused. I'd like to know.
Yeah. We're still looking for that work, like a literary biography of sorts.
Or analysis or something.
So we're at 23 minutes, so we probably should start to wrap up soon. We'll touch on the adaptations real quick. The first one we watched was the Joan Hickson adaptation. Again, a lot of the adaptation is it's like a grab bag because it cannot possibly follow the book. Because she doesn't show up until the freaking end. So they had to redo it.
And both adaptations introduce her much earlier.
Yeah, so the story's radically different in the adaptations, which already makes me angry, because I'm like, I like to have something faithfully adapted. That's just the way I am.
But then when she does show up, she has very little to say. It's really a focus on her crochet work. And her knitting. I mean, at one point, isn't she one of the vicar is holding out his arms, and she's
wrapping.
That's
yarn
basically
around
what
it.
she did in this book. I feel like
she just
she's like, so what do you think about blue? You think blue, good color?
Yeah. So it was a standard type of Joan Hickson performance, which was fine, but it didn't matter because
it was underwhelming.
And so I'm looking forward to a better one for this month. Then we watched the Geraldine McEwen one, which I know, Bill Rutenberg, you enjoy Geraldine McEwen's version of Marple, and I get that. I see that appeal. I just don't like how they, retconned her whole background and introduced a man that...
Yet again, she mentions the lost love.
I can't
Which is so
stand
funny.
it,
It's just like, dude, let it go.
Yeah.
But I did feel like I preferred that adaptation because they changed it so much. It's not that it corrected the systemic issues with the book itself, with the story, but it went a ways towards doing that. And also, it was a pretty snappy, 60 minutes, whatever it was.
They definitely made it more snappy.
Yeah.
It was more up to date. Like, everything was radically different. It starts off with Jerry Burton being like this guy with the red light district. He's in bed with some woman and he's boozing it up and he's I've just...
And then he runs into a tree with his motorcycle.
Yeah, he gets on his motorcycle and does the Dances with Wolves things where he's got the handlebars free and he's just like, oh, kill me. He does the Dances with Wolves thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this guy was totally fine. He was just going to the country to mend up his legs.
But they missed an opportunity there, because then there's a later scene where the sister confronts him about, having trauma from the war and stuff like that. And they never go into it. So it's kind of like, if you're going to change the story that much, change it that little bit more.
That makes it more interesting.
And then make it more interesting and have Marple just continue to be in the background and have Jerry run the show.
Yeah, and she could be knitting Jerry new
leg warmers
mittens and leg warmers for his damaged legs.
Right.
So anyway.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That one. And then in the end, Megan turns into a blackmailer and she's supposed to be the nice girl. Like, I don't know.
So each adaptation, I have to say, were off the mark because the book was not a strong Marple mystery.
No.
If they were just going to do a standalone about a poison pen in the village, I think it would have been fine.
Yeah.
Although Megan, yes, is annoying. All right.
What about Megan?
What about Megan?
Have you asked Megan how she feels today?
Oh, God, that girl. The actress in the Joan Hickson one was horrible. That Megan was horrible.
I'm surprised she wasn't the first murder victim.
All right, well, we're putting the body... Or
anyway.
no, we're putting the moving finger... We're not going to give any fingers. We're putting the moving finger behind us. That sounds weird, but...
No, we're not.
We're not. It's in the rear view. I'm using a lot of weird metaphors.
Let's just go with rear view.
Today is February 1st, which means we have a brand new juicy Miss Marple mystery that we are going to read this month. It's a bigger book with a shorter month, and so I'm excited because this book is about 80 pages longer. I'm sorry, we're going to read A Murder is Announced. Okay, it's about 300 pages, and it's a little meatier than this one. And Martine swears by it. She says it's great.
Yep.
So we're going to read it this month. Let me read you the quick synopsis, so you still have time to pick one up somewhere. The villagers of, here we go with the great names. The villagers of Chipping Cleghorn are agog with curiosity when the Gazette advertises, quote, a murder is announced and will take place on Friday, October 29th at Little Paddocks at 6:30 p.m., end quote. A childish practical joke or a spiteful hoax? She's like, yeah. Unable to resist the mysterious invitation, the locals arrive at Little Paddocks at the appointed time when, without warning, the lights go out and a gun is fired. When the lights come back on, a gruesome scene is revealed. An impossible crime? It's up to Miss Marple to get the scoop.
Better characters. Better pizza, Papa John's. No. Better characters. Better plot.
That's great. It sounds really good.
A little bit of queer representation. A decent mystery.
Oh, there's some queer representation.
And just better characters all around. So I liked it. I liked both adaptations.
Okay, so we're gonna be watching both adaptations of A Murder is Announced. I can't wait to watch it. I love those lights go out scenes. Yeah. I would
never do this, by the way. If anybody has an idea, hey, we're just gonna announce a murder. Don't announce a puppy party and bring a lot of wet wipes. Don't announce a murder. Don't turn off the lights.
Even at Halloween.
Don't scream, even if you're joking.
No one wants that.
Well, I mean, I'd watch it. I just don't want to be there.
Well, this is our Miss Marple for this month, guys. So I'm going to get this video uploaded tonight for you. get started on A Murder is Announced. We're looking forward to dishing on that at the end of February.
Give me that book.
Okay, which one?
We will never speak of this again.
We will
This
never
was
speak of the moving
horrible.
finger again. But I'm glad we still did it. I know the last time we talked, we were going to talk about rather ditching it. But I wanted to be a completionist.
Yeah.
I want to make sure I read every of the Marple titles, so it's done. And now I think we just have good titles ahead of us.
Yay.
Yay.
Hopefully.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us and the pups. Everyone's passed out again in the background. We'll be back in a few weeks with the wrap up for A Murder is Announced. Are you excited, hon?
I am. I've never read this, so this will be great.
Okay. Well, until next time, BookTube, thanks for joining us. We'll see you on the flip side. Bye. Bye.